Hi, my name is Lyla Cansfield, and if we haven't met before, I specialise in behaviour and problem solving with horses, and I run a programme called Spooky Horses, which is basically about getting your spooky, tense, distracted, or maybe even just a young horse to be more confident, more connected with you, so you can go out and have fun and do whatever it is you enjoy doing with your horse. One of my little mantras when I'm training is no dust. What do I mean by that? What I mean is I am not looking for drama. I am not, and you'll see actually as you look through videos that I put out, things that I do, yes, there will be the odd one where, you know, maybe we've had a transformation of a horse that was really had some quite extreme behaviour to now being a lot more rideable, a lot more confident and connected with their rider. But in general, when I'm training, my goal is that we don't have those overreactions. My goal is that we avoid all of that. Because quite honestly, if I'm working with a horse and they are rearing, backing, spinning, running backwards, or doing something else like that, in my view, they're already under too much pressure. We're already in the red zone. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. And whatever, I completely accept there are situations where that's unavoidable. Maybe you've gone out on a hack and everything was fine and all of a sudden something's changed and now you're dealing with chaos. Or something in your situation's changed, maybe you're a competition, something else has happened, something else has kicked off and you're now in an unavoidable dramatic situation. But the goal should be not to have that happen. The goal should be to do what I call deal with things at the lowest level. Try and spot the moments before we get the drama and deal with it then. So how do we do that? And that's where we get into what I call reading your horse. And reading your horse is about being able to spot those first moments of tension, those first moments where things are starting to just not quite go the way you want them to go. And being able to spot it there and do something about it, help your horse get back to confident and connected before we have the drama. So let's look at how we do that. First things first, we need to be able to spot when our horse is getting scared. What are the first signs that our horse is maybe getting tense or getting distracted? Because if we can spot those first moments and deal with it there, deal with it at the lowest level, then we're going to avoid the dust, we're going to avoid the drama. So let's go through the whole horse's body and look at some typical signs that a horse is getting worried. You might even want to write a few down because each horse is individual in terms of which ones they'll show more than others and also a little bit in what order they come in. So let's go through the whole horse's body and look at some of the typical signs that a horse is getting worried. First one, probably the most obvious, head up. Head above the withers. All of a sudden your horse's head goes up, particularly if they've spotted something. That's going to be one of those first signs. And horses, a little bit like us, the higher their head is, the further away in the distance they can see. So that's why the head goes up like that. Next thing, ears. If they've spotted something, for example, the ears are going to be pricked towards that. So you might have ears, if it's ahead of them, ears hard pricked forwards. If it's something behind them, they might be back, or they might be to the side, depending on where that thing is. But the thing about the ears is they're not floppy and just flicking around. They're quite tense and quite quick in their movements. So that's the ears. Let's go to the eyes. The eyes, in general, when a horse is worried, they stop blinking. Or they might just blink really quickly and then they'll go starey again. But you'll get these starey eyes, really wide open. You'll often see the whites of the eyes. And sometimes you'll also see things like wrinkles above the eyes where you get this sort of like almost triangle eyebrow effect on the horse, wrinkles underneath. But really important to recognise that when a horse isn't blinking, there is some tension there. In some horses that are a bit more difficult to spot, especially if they're in freeze, that'll be the only sign that your horse is worried. So well worth paying attention to. Nostrils and the nose, you might have the nostrils flared. And with a horse that's maybe more tendency towards freeze, you might almost get this feeling like they're not breathing, almost like this shallow breathing, like you can't hear it, it's not really happening. With a horse that's maybe a little bit more openly worried, you might get the dragon snort, like so. But, you know, there's flared nostrils. Again, pay attention to the breathing. Also, if your horse is like breathing really hard and you haven't done that much, that might also be a sign of tension. We look at the mouth. The mouth, really, you get sort of almost two opposites. Some horses will clamp their mouth shut. Again, you'll see like wrinkles around the lips, and they're, you know, really, really clamp shut. Sometimes that'll even make the nose look tight as well. Or other horses will be really champy on the bit, like the mouth just doesn't stop because they're tense and worried. If we look at the body, excessive sweat, a little bit like where they're breathing really hard and they haven't done much. If a horse is sweating really hard and doesn't really look like they've done much, then that can also be a sign of tension. The body getting really rigid through the middle and through the neck, so you can't really bend them. You feel like almost like you're about to get fired off. Like that feeling of the horse being really rigid is a really strong sign, again, that they're worried and they're tense and they're getting ready to go. In general, when they're like that, they also lack rhythm in the strides. So the strides might be short and choppy. They might start jogging, or if they're already trotting, they might start sort of going uppity into canter. But you'll get these like really sort of choppy feeling strides rather than nice long rhythmical strides. And if we look at the tail, in some cases, tail really high up, maybe like more like your Arabians, or particularly if there's something behind them, you'll often get the horse clamping the tail really down hard. And in really extreme cases where they're really, really worried, you'll get what's known as a J-tail, where the last few vertebrae just kind of stick out from the bum. So the rest of the tail's clamped down, and you get this like these last few vertebrae stuck out. That's, again, another sign of tension. So let's look at the opposite now. What does the horse look like when they're confident? First things first, head is going to be lower, isn't it? It's going to be a little bit more level with the withers, maybe even below the withers with a really relaxed horse. Ears are going to be a bit more floppy. They might flick around, might flick back to you, paying attention to the environment, but not that kind of hard pricked forward, like, what's that over there? Eyes are going to be soft and blinking, unlikely to see the whites of the eyes unless you've got a horse with a walleye. Breathing, nostrils. Nostrils won't be flared. Nostrils will be nice and relaxed, and the breathing, you'll just hear the breathing. Or, if you're in motion, you'll hear my favourite sound, which is where the horse is really opening up, breathing through the diaphragm and relaxing. The mouth will be soft, again, might lick and chew. Lick and chew is a really good sign that the horse is moving from a tense state to a more relaxed state. The stride is likely to be much more rhythmical. It's probably longer and feels slower, but it will, with a longer stride, cover more ground. The body will feel supple and relaxed, the neck will be quite flexible, the body will feel flexible, and the tail will just swing along nicely. So now we understand the signs, we can do what I call using traffic lights. What do I mean by using traffic lights? We've just talked about what green is. Green is when everything is going well. You and your horse feel confident and connected together, you're happy, you're both relaxed, everything is good. When you're in green, you can make progress. So if you're out on a trail or out on a hack, you can go further. Try that more difficult route. Maybe go faster. Maybe go for that canter up the hill. Whatever it is, but you can make progress in green. If you're schooling at home, you can try that more difficult exercise. Go a bit faster. Try that more difficult jump. Whatever it is, but in green, you can make progress. Amber is where you're starting to get some of those early warning signs that we discussed just a moment ago. Amber is where things are just starting to not feel so good. So you might have a little warning going, oh, hang on a minute, something's changed. We've got a little bit of tension. Some horses have a really short amber window. Some horses have a really long amber window. But basically, amber, when you're in amber, you need to make some decisions. And really, there's two options. If you feel like you're just in amber and your horse might quite easily get back to green, you can continue doing what you're doing and wait for your horse to relax within what you're doing. Or, if you feel like your horse is escalating in the amber and starting to get closer to the red zone, you can back off. You can go, okay, things aren't going so well, let's back off. So that could be we go slower. That could be we decide not to go on that more tricky route, or we decide not to canter up the hill. That could be that we stick to the smaller jumps, or we go back to poles. That could be we're in canter, now let's get back down to trot. There's a lot of different ways you could do that, but basically in amber you've got to make a decision as to whether you keep doing what you're doing, knowing that your horse is likely to find relaxation if you just carry on, or you back off and can make it easier to find that relaxation again so that you could try again or call it quits until the next day. Because what you're trying to do is avoid the red zone. We all know what the red zone looks like. It's not pretty. So let's try and avoid that and get our horses back to green so that we can carry on enjoying them. I'd love to hear how you get on with these traffic lights, whether they help you spot that first moment where your horse is starting to worry and avoid the red zone that basically none of us want to be in. Or equally, if you are struggling with spookiness, tension, distraction in your horse, and you really want some help working out how to spot those first moments of tension and what to do, then drop me a line, links in the bottom there, and I would love to chat to you.